Leaving hot coals improperly extinguished can cause a wildfire.
Hey guys, it's Smokey!
It looks as if Smokey is going to use the drown, stir, drown and feel technique. After the first drown, a good start. Next, another drink. And finally, a close feel.
Is it cool? Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, Smokey, catch! Oh, my bad, Smokey.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Your son wants to get a cat,
I'll really take care of him.
but you're allergic. Do you A, prepare yourself, B, make the best of it,
C squared equals
25.
Good job!
or C, find a loophole? When it comes to parenting, there are no perfect answers, but that's okay, because you don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Teens in foster care will love you just the same.
The following program was provided by an independent producer, solely responsible for its content. The views, information, or opinions expressed during this program series are solely those of the host and guests appearing on the program and do not necessarily represent those of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.
Brainstorm, bringing great minds and ideas together, exploring a wide variety of opportunities, achieving academic excellence, using the latest technology, government's impact, preparing for 21st century careers, parenting and health issues, topics shaping tomorrow. Brainstorm with Lisa Williver, bringing great minds and ideas together.
Welcome to Brainstorm. I'm Lisa Williver, and today we're talking about 911. In times of need and crisis, whether it's life-threatening medical emergencies, crimes, fires, or motor vehicle accidents, the first thing most of us do is call 911. But what happens when we call 911, and what makes a situation a real, true emergency? Joining me, I have Lieutenant John Zapley from the Trenton Police Department. John, thank you for joining me today.
Oh, you're welcome.
So why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself?
Okay, I've been a police officer with the Trenton Police Department for 27 years now. I've served in many various roles within the department. For about 10 years, I was a homicide detective before I got promoted to sergeant, and most recently, I was promoted to lieutenant.
Okay, and what do you do as a lieutenant?
Well, right now my duties are, in the last 6 years, I've been in charge of our communication center, which is basically our 911 center.
Okay, so I did a little research before our interview, and I learned that before the 1960s, we didn't have 911. We didn't have a universal number that was national that people could use in an emergency. So before that, what did people need to do if they needed the police? Because we're so used to just 911.
Sure, they actually needed to know the local number to their police department and call directly in.
And if you weren't in your town during an emergency, I guess that would present a little bit of a problem.
I would say
you had
so.
to call 411 to
Sure.
find out what the 911 would be. Now, time's always of the essence. So 911 made things more efficient, I suppose, because it gave people a way to quickly connect with somebody to send help.
That's correct.
So then let me ask you this. With dozens of precincts in cities, how do you manage your dispatch? How do you manage to be able to know where to send people? It just seems so overwhelming in a large city.
Our city is not as big as some of the other metropolitan areas that we have within the country, so ours is all located within one building, and our computer-aided dispatch, which is our CAD system, basically dictates who goes where based on the address of the call for help.
Okay, so basically you're saying that the response time that people receive will be directly related to the actual facility where the calls are received. Somebody makes the call and they have it already set up, they know where to send that call. And
yes, based on the address, it's geo-verified due to location, and it all automatically assigns the location of what unit that's working that area will be dispatched to.
So I have to tell you, I'm very happy we have 911, because the alternative, especially the way people move around so much, knowing whatever town or neighborhood you were in would seem very difficult to be able to get help. But for as amazing as 911 is, what can we, the public, do to make your job a little easier? Because I don't think we could put a number on how many lives you've saved over the years, the entire dispatch system. but I'm sure there are things that we can do as citizens to make it a little more efficient and make your job easier. What are some of those things?
Well, some of the things would be actually to determine what is a true emergency and what is not a true emergency.
Okay.
A true emergency would dictate a 911 phone call. A non-emergency, even though it's something that still needs police service, would indicate something that would come in on what we call our administrative lines. And that would be a direct dial on a 7-digit phone number instead of 911 on the phone.
Does every town have a number that their residents can call directly to the police and not calling the 911?
Yes.
See, now I didn't know that. For the longest time, I didn't know that. And I grew up in the city of Trenton, and I moved to a suburb. And I always called 911. I never even thought. And I started asking people in preparation for the show, who do you call? Everybody said 911. So I think you will do 911 a great service today, especially the show airs all over the country, letting people know that they should program that into their phones. Put it on the refrigerator so the kids know if they're home and there's something happening. This isn't a job that you can have a temp come in. I mean, this is a very serious job. Lives depend on it. Civilian lives, first responder lives. Talk to me about the training that somebody must go through in order to hit that point where you're ready to go live on 911.
Well, actually, believe it or not, it actually takes a dispatcher a lot longer to be trained than it would be for an actual police officer or fireman at this regard. At least on our end. I don't know what the other departments are actually doing and what their training consists of. I can only speak for us, and I know our training is a lot more intense because we not only do we dispatch police, but we also dispatch the fire department as well. So we need to know both departments, different codes and everything else, and how the fire department likes certain things done as far as the size of the fire or you know not. So our dispatchers really need to be well versed in both. And really anywhere, it could take anywhere from 4 to 6 months.
4 to 6 months.
Before they're actually done their classroom training, before they go what we term on the floor, meaning sitting in a seat with computers in front of you, where they would actually, for the first probably month, they would have a trainer with them, just mirroring them and just talking to them as they're going about the functions and you know, and their duties, before we can actually really turn them loose and consider them part of our minimum manpower requirements.
So replacing dispatchers, that's a timely process. So
and it's very tough too, especially with the hiring. At least within the city, it isn't like we could just pick up the phone and call people in. We deal with civil service here, so there's a lot more rules that we have to follow that maybe some other departments don't have to. So there's a lot of different parameters that we have to deal with.
Now I know some parts of the country it's a county-wide program. In New Jersey, is it mostly by municipalities?
Yes.
And we have over 550 municipalities, so there's that many.
Yes.
Okay, so that is a lot. How do you talk to your to your dispatchers and train them when it comes to how to keep their cool when they're speaking to somebody who's quite possibly going through the most traumatic event of their life? And callers are, I'm imagining, hysterical, not hearing what the dispatchers are saying to provide the information a dispatcher needs. How do you train someone for that? It seems very difficult.
Well, it's hard to train that. It's basically that gets better through repetition. The more they experience that, sometimes the dispatcher will get wrapped up into what the caller on the other end is doing. If they're yelling, sometimes they're going to try and yell just to overcome them, which sometimes, and I'm not saying it's a by the book thing, because not everything is cut and dried. So you really have to really basically go for as far as how the call is actually progressing. But I tell them, from my experience, 27 years being a cop, I've basically almost seen everything that could possibly happen to a degree. And I tell them all the time that when that person calls, it is something very traumatic, and all they really want to know is, we need the police, this is the address, and this is what's going on, like very brief. And the dispatcher is trained to ask a lot of qualifying questions, because we need to know how to actually qualify that call to determine what code we put on that, which will, at that point, then determine the response that the police will have in order to get there. And a lot of times they don't want to hear that, so they just want to call and say, listen, we need the police at 123 Main Street, and they basically want to hang up from there. But there's a lot of other things that go into that, but they don't understand that.
Yeah, now I would imagine, you know, you get calls from senior citizens, you get calls from children. You know, is there a specific way that you try, you know, because sometimes people are very professional, I'm sure, when they call and very matter of fact, you know, we have this happening, I'm at this address, this is, but then you have these extremely difficult calls that could, you know, be very emotional for people. How do they handle it when it's a child or?
Well, they do. They get by. They're professionals. They do. They get by the call, and then after the call is done, you know, they'll take, you know, they'll get up, they'll take a break, they'll regroup themselves. Or if it's really something where they're really going back and forth with the caller, and they just at their wits' end, instead of doing something unprofessional, maybe saying something that they may not want to, they're taught to turn it over to the supervisor, the shift supervisor. That's what they're getting paid to do, you know, more or less. Of course, oversee everything, but also to handle the more intense calls, and then they'll turn that call over to them, and that supervisor will take over the call from there.
Now, I would also imagine, and I'm just thinking about myself, if I'm driving down the highway and I see an accident, I immediately just, you know, force of nature, I call 911, but I assume probably everybody that just saw that is calling 911.
Yes.
So is that a problem when you have too many people calling about the same thing?
Yes, it is. We've had that, you know, on many occasions. A lot of times, you know, maybe a shooting or something like that, where a lot of people in that close proximity will be calling in. And unfortunately, we have to answer every call. And we can't disconnect the call until we're actually done with it. So we just can't say, oh, you're calling about, you know, the shooting at 123 Main Street. We already know, and hang up, because you may have seen something different than the other person and the previous callers that called in before you.
So that could come in handy in the investigation part of it.
Later on down the road. So we actually have to treat every call as it's the initial call. And when our system gets overloaded, if we can't handle all the calls, what they do is they bounce, so to speak, which means they transfer to one of our outlying townships to pick up the overflow.
Oh, good. That was my question. What happens when 20 people are calling and you know, you don't get, I've never gotten a busy signal calling 911. So
no, you'll never get a busy signal, because that's what it's designed to. If nobody in our communication center can't handle the call, means we have 10 seconds to answer a 911 call by law.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
We have to answer that call within 10 seconds. If we're not answering that call within 10 seconds, then it automatically, the system is designed to bounce that call to one of our outlying townships, and then they will answer it. They will take down the information, and what they do is they will actually call us back on what's called a tie line. It's a direct line. You just pick up the phone and it rings automatic. You don't have to dial any numbers. It'll ring right into our communication center, and then they'll feed us the information, and then we'll input a job or call that person back if it need be for us to ask. You know, the outside townships won't ask as many detailed questions as what we would do. So we'll have the basic synopsis of the incident. In case we need to find further information, we'll make a follow-up phone call. If not, we'll just input the assignment into our computer-aided dispatch, the computer, and then it'll be set for dispatch to a police.
So it seems like this, now it really seems even more important that people use the local police number whenever possible, when it's not a true 911 emergency, because when you do have an emergency and people are calling it, you're going to get bounced somewhere. So you might as well go directly to if you know where you are, if you're home, in your own town, to pick up the phone and call that local number to take the stress off of your department or across the country, any 911 dispatch.
Correct.
So when people call 911, if they do it by accident, and I'm not going to say that I've ever done this, and I'm not going to turn in my young son who played with my phone a few times, should you hang up because you're embarrassed, or should you tell them that it was an accident? Don't
hang up, because it makes our job a lot harder, because we have to phone call you back. Even though the system is called the anti-alley system, it actually captures the number and the name, so we know who it is. Even though you're no longer on the line, we'll know that it was a 9.
You would prefer us to say it
Stay
was
on
an
the line.
accident,
It's an accident.
my son
Everything
called,
is okay, and then that
then
way
you can just get rid of that one.
Because what will happen is, a lot of times when that does happen, someone dials by mistake, they hang up because they're afraid.
They're embarrassed,
We call back, they're afraid to answer the phone call, so now what happens, we have to send a police unit out there just to make sure nothing is happening inside the home or a car, wherever the case may be. So we actually have to make sure that everything is okay.
Right. We're going to go to a break, and I'm going to emphasize, do not hang up if you accidentally call 911. We will be right back with more Brainstorm.
This is the story of a boy who is very sensitive to lights and sounds. So he built secret hiding places where nothing could get in. The boy didn't like looking people in the eye. It made him feel uncomfortable. One day, he found out he had something called autism. His family got him help, and slowly, he learned how to live with it better.
Early intervention can make a lifetime of difference. Learn the signs at autismspeaks.org.
They told me a bottle couldn't dream. That I would never become a superhero. But I learned how to fly. Just to come back in a new disguise. And be the hero that I've always wanted to be.
Look at you. You're at the top of your game. You're unstoppable. Nothing can throw you off track. Wait, is that your car? Uh-oh. Yeah, I saw that coming. That will throw you off track. You're looking at around 10 grand in fines, legal fees, and increased insurance rates. Let's try this again. Smart move. Because buzz driving is drunk driving.
Welcome back to Brainstorm. I'm Lisa Williver, and I'm here with Lieutenant John Zapley from the Trenton Police Department, and we are talking about 911. So, John, people call 911 not just out of habit. They also believe that's the fastest way to get service. But I know I've learned a little bit over the years, you have to classify each call, and they kind of get stacked by priority,
Yes.
which makes sense. Tell me about that process.
The process is that way we can determine on who needs quicker service than someone else. Basically, there's a lot of qualifying questions that go into the process that our dispatchers are taught in order to determine what code. Our codes, I can speak for us now. Our codes start in the 100 series and they go all the way down to a 700 series. Obviously, the 100 series is going to get the quickest response.
Okay.
The 700 series will get the slowest response, and everywhere else in between will coordinate from there. So, based on what the caller is telling us and how the dispatcher qualifies it and then puts the assignment in, that's what will determine the type of response the police will be coming out in.
So if you have a call that might be a 5, 6, or 700, you're probably better calling the local police number than getting in that stack, because I think people just think 911 will be a very immediate guaranteed service.
Right, that doesn't matter. As a matter of fact, if you called 911 and it's not an emergency that is actually in progress, so to speak, you will be asked, again, I'm only speaking on with regard to our department, you will be told to hang up and call back on one of our administrative lines, because that way we do not tie up a 911 line for.
So you can just save that step by doing that in the beginning. When somebody calls, what do you want them to say?
Basically,
calmly.
Well, that would be great, but that doesn't happen all the time. So basically, is the main thing is just to be basically understandable when they do call, because when it's not, when they're yelling, a lot of times when something happens, there's a lot of background noise because other people now are involved, and of course, it's not going to be a conversation like you and I are having right now. So it's going to be very hurried. A lot of screaming, a lot of yelling. You're going to hear a lot of background noise depending on the amount of people that could be there. Basically, it's just to get the point across, just basically listen to what the dispatcher is asking you, answer the questions, and that will be the quickest than if you try and start yelling and rambling off, because the dispatcher is not going to be able to take all that in. They're going to have to continue to ask you, I didn't hear you, can you repeat? And it's going to take actually twice as long than if you were just able to do it the right way the first time.
Now, I've seen people make 911 calls before, and they're yelling at dispatchers and yelling, I need somebody now, I need them now. Can you let people know that the dispatchers are working on sending people even as they're talking to you, that it's kind of concurrently happening, that you don't have to hang up and then they send service. The whole time they're on the phone with you, they're figuring out who you need and who's going there.
Absolutely. Basically, as long as the caller on the initial call gives us the address and just says, whatever it is, a person shot, a person stabbed, whatever, our dispatcher will be creating the assignment already. And then what they'll do is, if it's a really true emergency, they'll actually send that off to one of our other dispatchers. Now, the person who answered the call will not be dispatching anyone because they can't do multitask like that. So they'll be at their computer, they will get that information, and they will send that to our dispatcher who's dispatching police at that point.
So it's being taken care of.
It's being taken care of, it's into progress, and then as further information comes back, that dispatcher that's on the call is actually typing in further information that could be relayed as the police are en route to the location.
Okay.
So just because the call has not ended doesn't mean the police are not actively en route.
And I know you always hear them say, stay on the line. I would imagine that's not just for the caller, but also for the dispatcher to be able to provide any additional information to first responders who are on their way to a scene. So is that why people shouldn't just make the call and hang up, that they should stay on the line?
Exactly, especially if the suspect is still on location, they'll want to know that. That way they can update it. If it's something where, it happened and the suspect ran away at that point, maybe that is not needed to stay on the line.
But it should really be at the discretion of the 911 dispatcher to tell you whether you should hang up or stay on the line with them. So another thing, when people are calling 911, sometimes they're not even sure where they are. So I know landlines, you know where somebody's calling from. But if you're driving in the, in the woods somewhere in the Pine Barrens, or you're in a place that you're not familiar with, can 911, even on a cell phone, detect where you are?
Yes, we can. We can determine that through latitude and longitude.
So now, if you were in a position, even a car accident or something, where medical emergency, even if you got the 911 just called it, even if you couldn't speak, they're going to send somebody?
Yes. Okay. It might take a little bit extra longer for us to determine the location.
Yeah.
But
how do they do that? With pinging? And,
yes, exactly.
Okay. But it's better to at least get that call complete. Or if, I mean, God forbid, you're in your house and somebody's in there and you don't want to make any noise, if you at least call 911, somebody will come.
Right.
Where you don't even have to speak.
And just stay on the line and just do your thing. We'll eventually get there. It might not be quick as if you give us the address, but it might take us a few extra minutes, but
now,
we'll find it.
I'm going to age us, and I'm going to say that I asked some teenagers if they had a question for 911, what would it be? They all said the same thing. Can I text?
Our capabilities right now, maybe some other larger departments, we are in the process of a new dispatch center, which is currently going on for us. That can be an option for us, but as of right now, we do not have that option.
And I would think it's better to call. I mean, they don't even know how to use the phone to call. They don't make very many phone calls, teenagers. But I told them, I said, just call. So, real quick, rapid fire. Emergency or not emergency? Your car was broken into overnight.
Not an emergency.
Okay. Someone has broken into your home while you're sleeping and is still there.
Oh, absolutely. That's an emergency.
So that's a 911.
Yes.
You have a very painful earache.
No.
Okay. A pipe just started leaking in your basement.
No.
Chest pains.
Yes.
Okay. Loud music from your neighbor that you find very annoying.
Nope.
Okay. Motor vehicle accident with injuries.
Yes.
If you see some kind of large debris that's fallen onto the highway.
Yes.
Thank you, because I've done that twice, so I'm not, okay, I did the right one. Smoke coming from your neighbor's house.
Yes.
Okay, so what we're gonna do right now, we are gonna play Brainstorm. So you kind of got two games. I have 8 ideas here about 911. So we are going to discuss them, and if it's a good, true idea, we keep it. If not, in the tradition of brainstorming, you get to make a basket. Okay. I'm going to warn you, there's no backboard.
Okay.
A little high degree of difficulty here. So let's go over the first one. Idea number 1, calling 911 ensures immediate service.
No, it does not.
Okay, ball that one up. Good job, there we go. Okay, idea number 2. 911 is there to answer any questions you may have.
Not 911.
Okay, not the butterball turkey line. Okay. All right, 2 for 2. Number 3, if you call 911 accidentally, wait and tell the dispatcher.
Yes.
Okay. Even if you're embarrassed, just tell them, okay, or else they're gonna find you. They'll call you, they'll come. Number 4, 911 dispatchers do not have unlimited first responders available.
That's correct.
Okay, and that again is why you have to stack things and prioritize them. Number 5, calls must be prioritized to ensure the most dire emergencies are handled first.
That's correct.
Okay, and I think that's something that the public should know, that the urgency of your situation really depends on how fast you will receive service. So it's not that the dispatchers aren't doing their job. It's not that police or EMS or fire aren't doing their job, but it's that, you know, in that list of everything that's coming in right now, it's kind of like a hospital triage, right?
Exactly.
In the emergency room.
Can I expound on that a little bit further? A lot of people will say, well, you know, we'll get calls and they'll say, well, you know, I called the police 2 hours ago and we still haven't gotten anybody out here. We understand that. Even though it's not like you're waiting in the line at the grocery store, you know, to pay, to check out, you know, the next person comes. There could be a lot higher priority calls that have come in since you initially called. So therefore, those calls are going to go in before your phone call. So that's sometimes it happens, and that just gets, your call gets pushed further down the stack.
And I think sometimes people forget you're dealing with police, fire, and medical.
Yes.
So it's not that it's just, you know, how many crimes are happening right now. It's crimes, it's heart attacks,
everything.
it's, you know, fire and false alarms. And idea 6, children should be taught how to use 911 and what to say.
Yes.
All right, I just have to tell you, when my children were little, I thought I taught them, and I pretended that I was not feeling well, and I was laying in there on the floor waiting to see what they would do, and they dialed the 3 numbers for Nickelodeon.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, so I wouldn't be here, so definitely teach the little kids.
Yes.
Number 7, the local police number can often provide faster service.
Yes.
Okay, so non-emergency, call them. Only call 911 after you've tried everything.
Yes, I would say so.
But what if it's a fire? What if, like,
911 for a fire? Never play with that.
Okay, so
Even
don't.
though you might not
let's
see.
ball that one up, because sometimes people think I'll put it out myself, and my husband, being a firefighter, says call first and then get out. Look at you. Okay. So yeah, definitely when it comes to a situation, we don't want people to be afraid to call 911.
Even if you see smoke, because the smoke.
Yeah.
Even though there's no flames, it doesn't mean it's not going to be.
And, you know, people sometimes think they've put a fire out and they turn around and it's back worse. So, yeah, I mean, common sense. Just, you know, ask yourself if it's an emergency and act accordingly. Well, thank you, because you have provided the viewers a great service today. And thank you for everything you do. And we will see you next time on another episode of Brainstorm.
Marie, you have prediabetes.
Prediabetes? I don't have time to eat right or exercise. I'm a busy mom.
Oh, you're a busy mom.
Yeah.
This is great news. Busy moms never get prediabetes.
Wait, what?
Let me just... Yeah, this is all the people at risk for prediabetes, and way over here, busy moms. No?
Everybody has a dream. Mine was to see the ocean. And with a little help, I made it.
Does your family need a break from the daily routine?
Hello, I'm Dr. Spruce. If you or someone you know needs a healthy dose of nature, visit discovertheforest.org and trade in the big screen for the big blue sky by visiting a local park or forest near you.
Hiking, picnicking, swimming, orienteering, climbing, admiring wildlife, or inhaling fresh air may result in heightened creativity, feelings of joy, harmony, satisfaction, and a euphoria that can only be explained as oneness with the natural world. Whoa.
What to expect when you're expecting.
Like here.
A teenager.
Today, I'm going to show you how to team-proof your home. First step, hide the car keys. Preferably somewhere they would never look. Challenges will come up. Be ready for them. Hi, honey.
Ready for the... Mom, you don't use mannequins in the mannequin challenge.
You don't have to know it all to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same.
150 over 90.
180 over 111.
160 over 110. I had a stroke.
This is what high blood pressure looks like. You might not feel its symptoms, but the results from a stroke are far from invisible or silent. If you've come off your treatment plan, get back on it, or talk with your doctor to create an exercise, diet, and medication plan that works for you. Go to loweryourhbp.org.
If I would have followed a treatment plan, I would not be in this situation.